Purdy out of the shotgun. Purdy steps up, gets to his right, throws middle. It is intercepted by Bynum. The 49ers lose again. Cam Bynum intercepts Purdy twice in the fourth quarter. And now the 49ers are going at the Vikings.
49ers fall for the second consecutive time, this time at the hands of the Minnesota Vikings, and it was not good. I mean, walking out of this one, as it's Adam Copeland, by the way, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund with you live here in the KNBR studios. 415-808-KNBR is the phone number to call. We are streaming live on Twitch, YouTube, and KNBR.com. Check us out there, and let us know where your frustrations lie, because this was an ugly one, guys. Yet again, Niners fall, and this time it's turnovers from Brock Purdy at the end of the game that allow them to not complete the comeback. But this time he was looking to march the field for a touchdown to try to win the game at the end. Secondary was Swiss cheese, it seemed like, for the entirety of the day. And for an offensive line that had allowed the Minnesota Vikings multiple sacks to Kirk Cousins in every game this season, the Niners did not get home one time. They had trouble getting off the field on third down. They got outrushed in this game in terms of yards per carry. This was not a 49er football game, and it was clear based on the frustration on Kyle Shanahan's face afterwards.
Yeah, it was a butt kicking. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row, at least on the defensive side of the ball, the 49ers got the butt kick. I mean, what is it, one punt? Minnesota punted the ball.
That's 9 minutes left in the
once.
fourth quarter.
Yeah, 9-10 left in the fourth.
I mean, that is ridiculous. That's embarrassing. I mean, when you talk about a defense that at one point we were saying was the best defense in the National Football League. I mean, you couldn't get off the football field. I think Kirk Cousins ended up throwing for 400 and something yards. I mean, the front four. I mean, it's on. I mean, I'm a little biased, but the front, it's on you. I mean, you got to get to a quarterback like Kirk Cousins. He was sitting back there, even when he was pressured. He would just climb the pocket and throw a dime down the field. You got to get home. We talk about Nick Bosa. We talk about somebody next to Nick Bosa. Everyone's just you got to throw a fit to the quarterback, and you got to disrupt the quarterback. And it was embarrassing. I mean, just watching this game, I mean, the ball was never punted until the fourth quarter. That means you're not doing your job as a defense, and you just got to get better. And this team, I mean, we know the talent on this football team, and it was just tough to watch if you don't get pressure on the quarterback and disrupt him a little bit, now, you kind of put your secondary. There was a lot of penalties in secondary, but you put your secondary kind of in the bind. And we saw with the penalties in the secondary, a lot of double moves. I mean, if you're doing a double move and you're still completing passes, you're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback.
Plus, Dennis, you got to explain something to me because I don't know. But Steve Wilks should be under fire, not only because the defense is underperforming at a high level, but before the half, you just score, you get back in this game. There's a minute left in the half. Now at this point, they're 60 yards away. There's 17 seconds left in the half. Minnesota has no timeouts, and you run a zero blitz. Now look, the kid Jordan Addison made a great play in stealing the ball from Ward, but he shouldn't have had one-on-one coverage down the field. There was no safety help there, so at least you get a tackle there, and you could potentially hold him to a field goal instead of 16-7 at worst. It's 12-7 or whatever it would have been, 13-7, whatever it would have been. But I don't understand the strategy there. I mean, you heard Kyle Shanahan right after the game. He was directly asked the question, I think, by Matt Miyoko, and he said, yeah, that's something we're going to have to look at this week. He didn't want to rip his DC right in front of everybody, but, I mean, one of the first things he's going to do on the plane is go back and look at that play and go, what were you doing? Because, I hate the prevent you from winning, but in that situation, you got to play a prevent defense. They have no timeouts. If you tackle somebody in bounds, They don't have any time to get anything but, at best, a field goal. It was a great play by the kid. Give the kid a lot of credit. But you're running a zero blitz when Minnesota has no timeouts with 16 seconds
Single
left.
coverage over the top for everybody else? Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, I mean,
what are you doing?
That's trusting your guys, right? I mean, Charvarius, he should have picked that, right? I mean,
Absolutely
if he would have caught it, if he would have caught it with his hands, it would have looked like it would have been the big play of the game. He didn't do it. So I think you just trust your guys in that, in that situation, and you trust your best cornerback. And Charvarius had a tough game today.
He did.
Had a couple penalties, and he got beat on a couple double moves. But you trust your guys on that play, and I'm sure Kyle's going to question him, but I'm sure he's going to say, "Hey, listen, I trust my guys when they're out there," and that was the call. I'm trying to get pressure on the quarterback because my front four can't disrupt this quarterback, can't get any pressure in his face. I got to get some pressure on him, but I trust my guys on the back end, and just didn't work out. It would have been a great play, would have been a second pick of the game, would have been a big turning point in this football game, but it didn't happen. You got to make the plays.
Niners get absolutely shredded on defense in this game. 8 of 13 on third down for the Vikings. 24 first downs total. They picked 18 of them up through the air. They go 6.8 yards per play. They go 74 rushing yards, which outrushes the Niners kind of alarming to just 65. And we knew they had a pretty good front, but what shocked me, I think, most of all was how they held up at the offensive line. There were 3 or 4 different times where I thought, especially there at the end, on that final play that they pick up that first down where you think Kirk Cousins is going down, and they held up. Give them credit. I mean, this is up there with Matt Stafford, the best quarterback the Niners have seen this year, but they played an inferior offense without its top player in Justin Jefferson, and they allowed a rookie to go for 100 yards on them. He's the 3rd Minnesota Viking ever go for 100 yards on Monday Night Football. It's Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss, and now Jordan Addison who goes for 2 touchdowns in the game. And I'm with you, John. I mean, that's the most crucial play in the game. You lose by 5 points, 22-17 the final, and you're coming with a 0 blitz against the guy who's an absolute burner. I mean, he's a talented player, a first-round draft pick, the 4th of 4 guys who were drafted receiver-wise through that first round. By the way, when he was taken, Dante Whitner wasn't real happy about that. We were all sitting in the draft room together, and he was like, I don't know about this guy. I think he's a little bit soft. I'm not sure he's going to hold up in the NFL. And I think today's NFL is just different. You can be a burner on the outside like that and come across the middle a little bit. And he did a really nice job. I mean, give them credit, but also the Niners did not execute defensively in numerous spots. And again, they get matched basically the same. 5 penalties for 37 to the Vikings, 5 for 35. But it seems like their penalties come in the most inopportune places. Yeah,
and back to that play. I mean, if you watch that play, I mean, it was a good call. If you make the play in the back end, it was played perfect. The ball was thrown behind. Charvarius jumped it. If he would have intercepted that ball, I think it would be a different story in this football game. But he didn't do it. You got to make plays when you put in position, and it was a great play by the receiver. But again, it was just trusting your guys. I mean, and it's frustration probably with your front 4 because you can't get pressure on the quarterback, so you try to bring everybody.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the story of the game. You got no pressure on Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He gets a bad rap. He was 2-10 coming in on Monday Night Football games. He gets a bad rap. But if he's going to be able to sit back there and do whatever he wanted, and you can't, there's no complaining about we didn't have Trent Williams, we didn't have Deebo Samuel. They didn't have Jordan Jefferson. I mean, he's the best player in the game. He's the offensive player of the year last year. And Jordan Addison's a nice player, don't get me wrong, but he goes 7 for 123 and 2 touchdowns, and then he goes out of the game with cramps. TJ Hawkinson's up and down with an ankle. He catches 11 balls. If those 2 guys are out, then Osborne's killing you. If Osborne's killing you, or if Osborne's not making a play, some guy named Powell's making a play. I mean, it was just like, oh, okay, this guy's out, I'll just hit this guy.
Like, this guy's out, I'll just hit this guy. No, it's Brandon Powell.
It was ridiculous. I mean, this is the worst their defense has looked in a long time.
Terrible.
Especially 2 weeks in a row. And look, last week they gave up 2 field goals when they were up, and this is the kind of defense in the fourth quarter. They gave up 2 field goals to lose that game, and this is the kind of defense that should shut that down. And Dennis, like you're saying, they got to get home with 4. That's what they do. I mean, their corners, it's tied together. And so when Ward has a tough game like he did, he had a holding call, and when Demo has a tough game, he had a PI in the end zone. It's because you're not going to be able to cover these guys forever. And if you get 0 sacks on a guy, 0 pressure on a guy, I mean, Kirk Cousins just sat back there all day long and just waited for guys to get open. It was pathetic.
415-808-KNBR, 808-5627 is the number to call. Where's your frustration? Jake Moody did miss another kick, by the way, early in this one. He came back and banged a 50-yarder, but missed another one early on, which a bit frustrating. But then Greg Joseph comes and misses an extra point and smokes that one at the end that gives the Niners an opportunity. But let's get you the stat of the game in this one momentarily here. As soon as I find my read here. Stat of the game sponsored by Stevens Creek Toyota. Shop a huge selection of over 500 vehicles. Stevens Creek Toyota, the obvious choice. The stat of the game for me, I'm going with the 0 sacks. I mean, this defense is predicated on creating pressure up front. They, by the way, shot out of a cannon Alex Madison to start the game. Their first carry of the game. He kind of came out of a cannon, picked up like 12 or 13 yards on that very first carry, and they had a couple of big ones. Cam Akers is a guy who got run out of favor when he was in with the Rams earlier this year, and they could really use him at this point. And he's like carrying dudes to like 3 or 4 or 5 yards in that second half. So for some reason, they're not wrapping up in the way they were wrapping up. I felt like early in the season, Nick Bosa's not getting home. Hargrave isn't getting the push he needs. But for me, stat of the game is absolutely 0 sacks. You can look at what they did on third down, and you can look at the passing numbers, but for me, it starts in the trenches and up front, and the Niners are just not doing against a team that, by the way, is not on a clean sheet as far as sacks go all year long.
Yeah, and you're right about that. I mean, the stat for me is the punts. I mean, and that goes with not pressuring the quarterback and not getting any sacks. I mean, one punt, was it total 1 punt? Minnesota punted once in this football.
9-10 left in the fourth.
I mean, that is a stat to me. I mean, that just shows me that the defense, you're just not doing your job. I mean, you're just not doing it. If you can't get off the field, if you're forcing a team to punt once, you're not doing your job. So that's a stat that just sticks out to me. Just one punt.
Well, and that's what we come down to is the third downs. They were 8 of 13. At one point, they were 7 of 10. And then the last one, they actually just ran it out so they could set up the field goal. So they weren't stopping them at third down at all. And after the interception, Ward steals the interception from Addison, which is ironic because later on the biggest play, he steals it from him. But they got the ball down to the 11-yard line, and CMC fumbles. They went 11 plays, 89 yards on that drive and scored a touchdown off that turnover. After that interception, they went touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, field goal. So in the next 5 possessions, 3 field goals and 2 touchdowns after the opportunity. And for the second consecutive week for the 49ers, you're getting the ball in their territory and you're not scoring. So they had the ball at the 11-yard line on their first possession. CMC fumbles, get nothing. They go 11-89 and score a touchdown. You get it the second time, you go all the way down to their 22, you stall there, and Jake Moody misses the 40-yarder. It's an issue. I know he missed I know he came back and hit a 55-yarder. That's great, but you can't have a roller coaster ride every time. You know, the ball game should be 10-0, and you should be in control, and it should be a different game. Just like last week. I mean, you had a touchdown in your first drive. Warner intercepts a pass. You're down at the Cleveland 26. You got it as close to 9, and Moody misses a field goal, and you get nothing. Last week, you should have been up at least 10-0. This week, you probably should have been up at least 10-0. The games are completely different if you capitalize on what you should be doing. The defense was horrible, no doubt.
It is fair.
But they should have had a 10-0 lead last week. They should have had a 10-0 lead this week, and they didn't get it done. And it gives the other team confidence. They're hanging around, and all of a sudden they're beating you down, and that now you're in a dogfight.
Yeah, all based, by the way, great point you make there, too, because I felt like I thought the defense didn't play quite as bad as we talked about throughout the week. Today I thought they played awful, but to your point, they should have been up. They got turnovers early in both of those games, put them in a position to take a bigger lead, and they did not execute. 415-808-KNBR is the number to call. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you here after a Niner 22-17 loss. Back-to-back losses here on the road as they get ready to come home to take on the Bengals and then enter the bye week. Let's go out to Rocky. Rocky is in Vallejo, wants to talk about the shaky defense. Rocky, you're on the Sports Leader.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, man?
It was a really bad loss, and I think this loss is an off-season loss. Let me explain. Number one, Jimmy Ward. They should have re-signed Jimmy Ward. You miss his leadership. You miss his coverage skills. He could play safety. He could play slot corner, outside corner, any position. Number two, you should have signed Robbie Gould. I know the kicker has a big ego. You still need that guy because he doesn't miss field goals, important field goals, that is. Secondly, Steve Wilks hire, I don't know about that. I don't think he fits the Niners type of defense. He's looking for turnovers, and that's exactly what he did with that coverage 0 at the end of the first half, which was a huge mistake. I completely disagree with Dennis Brown. I know Dennis played the game, and I obviously have not played the game, but I think Dennis is completely wrong there. You don't call cover 0 when it's 16 seconds left, and all you need to do is tackle the guy inbounds, and you go to the second half. That's just simple mathematics right there. That was a blunder. That's a fireable offense, like John Lund just said. And that's all I have for you guys.
Well, Rocky, appreciate the call, man. I'm not going to say.
I ain't disagreeing with Dennis.
Well,
man.
dude, you could if you wanted to, because you're sitting at home. I'm sitting here. Dennis, you're handsome, and you're correct.
Yeah, I can dig where he's coming from, but my comment is, when Kyle Shanahan said, "What were you calling?" She's going to say, "I trust my guy."
Yeah.
I mean, I trust the guys I have on the football field, and I trust my best cornerback, my best coverage quarterback or cornerback to make a play. And he just didn't make a play. Now, if he made the play, like I said, he should have made that play. He should have caught it with his hands and got caught on his shoulder pads, and it gets taken away from him. And yeah, he has no safety. He has no backup. It's one-on-one. It's against him. So it was a bad call, but I'm sure Wilkes would say, I trust my guys out there when I call a play.
I would agree with him in the part of the slot corner with Jimmy Ward. I think if they had to do over again, I think that maybe Jimmy Ward would be a guy that was here. He was a great leader too. They're really struggling, and what happens is that you got Demo. I think Demo's better in the slot. I think they're going to have to go out at the trade deadline, and I think this cemented that kind of a thought process because, guys, you start looking at the schedule of who's coming up. It's not a good time to be playing poor pass defense. I mean, Joe Burrow's coming in, and he's starting to get a little bit healthier, and you're talking about guys like Chase and Boyd and Higgins, and then even the Jags, Lawrence and Kirk and Ridley, and Seattle's coming up with DK Lockett, Smith, and Jigba, and the Eagles are coming up with A.J. Brown, Smith, and Goddard. I mean, those are really good teams, and think about it. I mean, they didn't have Jordan Jefferson tonight, and they just absolutely crushed you. So if you can't get any kind of rush on the passer, and the Eagles have a much better offensive line. The Bengals aren't quite as good. The Vikings do have two good outside tackles that played well tonight, but if you're going to have trouble in the secondary, and obviously they tie together, but if you're going to have trouble in the secondary, they got to go out and get a corner. I like Jalen Johnson of the Bears, possibly had a couple interceptions against the Raiders. He's a Fresno kid. His contract runs out at the end of the year. Maybe they keep him, maybe they don't, but they wouldn't have any money moving forward as they try to take that $40 million into next year. They got to do something, because I think they got to put Demo back in the slot, and they got to get somebody on the outside to help that secondary, because teams are going to be licking their chops. Kirk Cousins just threw for 378 yards and hardly broke a sweat doing it.
Yeah, this is certainly something we're going to talk about as we get closer to the trade deadline, which is 8 days away, by the way. Trade deadline goes down next Tuesday. Niners fall back-to-back games here, 22-17, this time at the hands of the Minnesota Vikings. And you mentioned the Seahawks coming in and them having to go out to Seattle on Thanksgiving. Hey, division, not a cupcake anymore, right? You get 2 losses now.
You're a half game up.
In division, you're a half game up, and you are no longer sitting in the number 1 spot for the NFC playoff picture, and we saw what that meant last year, having to go out to Philadelphia. You want to make sure, especially December 3rd, that you are playing your best football, or at least on your way back to playing your best football. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. Niners lose 22-17. See all you guys waiting on hold. We will get to everybody here. Hang it on the phone lines, get to your gripes and what's bothering you following this Niner loss, and we'll go back out to Minnesota, where Tracy Sandler of Fangirl Sports Network is boots on the ground. We'll get her take on what went down in Minnesota. That's all coming up. Niners lose to the Minnesota Vikings 22-17 on the Sports Leader.
think a lot went into it. Us not making the plays when they were there. The way the game went was definitely played into their hands, especially in the first half. But definitely gonna look at the tape and not be too happy about how we performed in the moments where we could have changed it.
Oh, I can tell you what the tape won't show. It won't show Nick Bosa and the defensive line knocking down Kirk Cousins for a few sacks. 0 sacks against Kirk Cousins in this Minnesota Vikings offense for the first time this year. Multiple sacks allowed in each and every other game. And that's going to be one of the glaring numbers, I think, that stands out here for this 49er 22-17 loss. Back-to-back losses now on the road. They did not have everybody healthy for this one. No Trent Williams. And I don't know that was the major issue in this one. Defensive execution was not there. They didn't execute offensively when they had opportunities early. A missed kick is a big deal. And while I don't agree with everything that caller Rocky had to say from Vallejo, Rocky with a couple of good points about it being an off-season loss, that Robbie Gould, Jimmy Ward, Steve Wilkes are all factors potentially in why this one went down the way it did. However, you may not have all the other pieces like Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, McCaffrey, and whatnot if you bring all those guys back, which is what some of these guys want to talk about here on the phone lines. We are going to go out to Minnesota in just a minute and talk to Tracy Sandler of the Fangirl Sports Network, but Gabe is waiting in Sacramento. Gabe wants to talk about that expensive, ineffective Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead. What's up, Gabe? You're on the Sports Leader.
Hey, what's up, Copes? Long-time listener, first-time caller. Hey, I just wanted to talk about that ineffective defensive line. You know, we're paying a lot of money for Bosa. I understand he's getting double teams. Hargrave's getting a lot of double teams. But what about Armstead? What is he doing with everybody getting double teamed? I feel like he should be putting up a lot more stats and being a lot more effective on there. But I feel like it's pretty great nowadays.
Yeah, I hear you. Thanks so much, Gabe. I appreciate the call. I'm with you, and I get that. That's what big money players do, and part of me says, hey, man, nobody hits a home run every time up just because they get the big contract. But the other part of me looks around the league and goes, TJ Watt's out here wrecking games. Myles Garrett's out here wrecking games. We have not seen a big, Nick Bosa has changed the game in that capacity. And again, I don't know what's happening in the trenches, but we haven't seen the big statistical performance game from Bosa yet. And sometimes that's what you need. Big-time players make big-time plays in moments where their teams need them. Mike and Steve, I see you guys waiting here on the phone lines. We are going to go out to Minnesota where we've made the connection. Steve and Mike, by the way, we will get to you guys in just a few minutes here. But Tracy Sandler was on hand for the game. The Niners lose 22-17 up in Minnesota. Tracy, what's going on? Adam, Dennis, and John here with you following the loss. We're crying in our beer. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm sorry if it's a little loud. I'm in the tunnel, so just bear with me if it's a little loud walking by, but I am good. I'm sorry you guys are crying in your beer. That was a tough loss.
No worries, Tracy. So give us the vibe of what went down there. I mean, a lot of not good execution for the 49ers and some stuff that looked like it was the same ineffectiveness back-to-back weeks. A couple of opportunities John had pointed out, like they had last week after the Fred Warner turnover to come back the Demo Lenore turnover to come back and score a touchdown. Today they do the same thing. They get an interception, but they don't push the ball in to the end zone. Christian McCaffrey turns it over. Then you've got the long 60-yard touchdown at the end of the first half. It just seemed like a lot of ineffectiveness for a second straight week, which is uncharacteristic of a Shanahan team.
It is, and that is really what they talked about, and they all talked about how they are so locked in during the week, and they practice so well, and they practice so hard, and they have to execute on game day. But this was another week of not executing, not capitalizing. The defense certainly does not look the way that we are used to the 49ers defense looking. Of course, we had the couple of Brock Purdy interceptions. I think the one at the end was, as he said, it's your final drive, 34 seconds left, you're trying to push it, but the one to Jawan Jennings was just very off, and those things really hurt you. And Christian McCaffrey took responsibility from the loss right from the podium. He said that if he doesn't fumble that ball at the beginning of the game, he doesn't think they lose the game, and that may or may not be true, but these are all things that are very uncharacteristic of these 49ers teams. I still maintain these losses are good for them. You don't want to see a lot of them, and they have another tough game this weekend against Joe Burrow and the Bengals, but Fred Warner said they got to learn how to win these grindy games. They can't, if it's not 30-10 or 42-10, then they're not winning the games. But this is a rough stretch for them. They lost these back-to-back games last season as well, and we know where they ended up at the end of the season. But these are not good losses, and I think the things that are concerning are just the lack of execution, the lack of capitalizing, and that the defense just seems off, and that is concerning because the thing the 49ers rely on so heavily is their defense.
And Tracy, you're there. What do you see? I mean, the last 2 weeks. I mean, we've seen the defense basically just get ran up and down the football field. I mean, is it a scheme wise that you're seeing from your perspective? And what are your thoughts in these last 2 weeks and the way this defense has played?
I mean, the defense is certainly playing differently than I think we've seen them play. There's a lot more blitzing than we've been used to in years past, and they're just not. They don't seem to be able to finish. And I think the big thing that's been problematic the last 2 weeks more than anything is they can't get off the field in third and long. And it was something that we saw a few times last year, early in the season, including I think in that Atlanta game in Week 6 of last year. But they can't get off the field in third and long, and it's becoming a real problem for them because then the other team is capitalizing and scoring these big touchdowns, and that's the problem. And I think ultimately, if you can't do that and you're turning the ball over more than the other team is turning the ball over, you're not going to win the game.
Absolutely. Tracy Sandler is joining us, Fangirl Sports Network. She joins us. I don't know if we're making you a regular, but it's like every week we get your insight. I like it. She's in Minneapolis as the 49ers lose to Minnesota. Had a late chance, but lose 22-17 on Monday Night Football. That's 2 in a row. And then they head home to play the Bengals at Levi's on Sunday. Kyle briefly mentioned this, but you could tell it was something that probably on the plane he's going to address with Steve Wilks. But 16 seconds left in the half, and they go with a zero blitz. Minnesota has no timeout, so if you tackle a guy in bounds, you're fine. Now, look, Charvarius Ward, he's going to tell you 100 times out of 100, he's got to make that play. He's got to catch it with his hands. Our conversation right now is irrelevant, but I just found it to be odd that was the call with that kind of time left. They get the touchdown, so instead of going into half, it was 10-70. They missed. Greg Joseph missed the extra point, but it's 16-7 at the half. How did you read how Kyle answered that question?
Well, the thing with Kyle that I always really appreciated is he's pretty transparent, and it was clear that that's something they're going to have a conversation about. He did very briefly say that, and he's right to have that conversation, and I think that's something they're going to have to address because it's now 2 weeks in a row of these tough losses, and a lot of it could be placed on the defense. So I think that Kyle was not happy with that. It was a fluke play. I mean, you do have to somewhat give credit to Jordan Addison and give credit to the Vikings. And you're right, 100 times out of 100, Charvarius Ward is going to catch that ball, and it's the second pick of the game. It's a second pick of the game for him. It's a completely different football game. But that's not what happened. And, that's also just kind of a fluke play that maybe 9 times out of 10 isn't going to happen that way, but it did and could have been prevented. And Kyle Shanahan certainly did not seem happy about it. And I think that will be a conversation. None of them seemed happy. This week felt different even than last week. Last week, I think that it really hurt, and there were things to point to. And I think this week there was a frustration level in terms of they're not playing well, and they're not playing how they were playing. And Nick Bosa had made an interesting comment about how you start out 5-0, and you feel like you're doing everything right, but the NFL will humble you. And I think it is possible this team start out 5-0 and was hitting on all cylinders and dominating team after team and dominated the Cowboys. Then they go in these 2 tough road games, and I think it is humbling. I think it's good for them, but it's not going to be good for them if they go into the bye week 5-3.
Talking to Tracy Sandler here on the UMA guest line. Again, Fangirl Sports Network. She is on hand where the 49ers have lost 22-17 to the Minnesota Vikings. Does this, with the trade deadline a week away now, or 8 days away, I guess it's a week away from tomorrow, does this game do anything or tell you anything about where they might go? I mean, interior offensive line help was definitely something we had discussed. I think they probably have to go to the secondary, which is what John and I were talking about. Kevin Byard was traded for today by the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think? Does this tell you anything, or are they sort of staying the course here?
I mean, I don't know that they're going to overreact, but I think if there's something to make them better, they're going to do that. I mean, you brought up the offensive line, and I think the other thing that they didn't have today was Trent Williams, which wasn't necessarily the problem, but that's a big loss for them, and that's something they're probably going to look at. It might have to be the secondary, or it might have to be along the line, because the line is not performing. The defensive line is not performing up to the level that they're used to them performing, and that's true all across the way. And it's true of the front seven generally, but this line is not performing. And so they make the trade for Randy Gregory, and he's, come in the last couple weeks and been fine. But do they need to look at that and make that even easier? And something we had talked about, weeks ago when I came on was that corners do not grow on trees,
Yeah.
and is it going to be easier to find them along the line? But the thing with the secondary, though, my thing with that when I think about it is, are they going to find someone better than Deommodore Lenoir? I think Deommodore Lenoir is playing at a really high level. Charvarius Ward is a top corner in this league. He had a tough night tonight, but he's a top corner in this league. Isaiah Oliver has been playing well. Is it the secondary, or is it the line putting more pressure on the secondary? And I think that's what they're really going to have to look at.
I think that's exactly what they're going to look at. Tracy Sandler, Fangirl Sports Network. Make sure you check her out, FGSN.com. Tracy, we always appreciate you stopping by. Have a safe flight home and home cooking, I guess, against Cincinnati. But it's not going to be any easier against another quarterback like Joe Burrow, right?
Nope, definitely not. But I guess back to work they go.
All right. We will see you next week. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Tracy Sandler, again, of the Fangirl Sports Network. She does an excellent job, and love getting her on the postgame. I see you guys hanging on the line. Nathan, Steve, Todd, Mike, Terry, Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike. Everybody hanging out. We will get to your calls following the 49er loss to the Minnesota Vikings here after we tell you about the Difference Maker, sponsored by Benjamin Moore Paints. Experience the Benjamin Moore retail difference at our independently owned authorized retailers today or at benjaminmoore.com. I don't want to poke at anybody or anything, but the difference maker in this game is probably a couple of different things. It's probably the call that we just talked about by Steve Wilks there at the end of the first half. It's probably the story of the turnovers. I mean, you give a team 2 more opportunities than you've got, you're probably not going to win the game, especially when you do it in the fashion that they did by turning the ball over in the red zone after you take it away from them on their opening drive. I mean, you get an opportunity to score and you don't execute. And then the other one is probably the offensive line there, the Minnesota Vikings, who had been porous all season long, 15 sacks allowed to this point. They had lost the turnover battle in just about every situation. They had led the league in turnovers and had only turned it over 6 times. They went 50% of their season total in this game. So not a good showing defensively or offensively, really, for the 49ers. We will get to your calls, your frustrations. What is it that is pissing you off the most about this loss? Is it the turnovers? 3 this time for the 49ers. Was it the 60-yard touchdown to end the first half by Jordan Addison, or no sacks by this expensive 49er defense? 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We'll talk about it next on the Sports Leader. Skip him to 8. Let me do the read at the top so we can get it over with. So you want to come in with what? Is there that final play that Kirk Cousins gets through?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak to our side. It's just we couldn't get off the field. Plain and simple. We started slow in the first half, and then, anytime the quarterback's throwing for almost 400 yards, and I'm not sure what the third down percentage was, but it just too much leaky yardage, and couldn't get off the field. They scored on almost every drive that they were out there, so we can't let that happen.
I can tell you what the third down percentage was. It was 8 of 13, 61.5%. That's the exact third down percentage for the Minnesota Vikings. That was Fred Warner there talking about that defense not being able to get off the field on third down, which sort of brings us to this next topic, protecting the quarterback, which is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff. Protect your community. And apply for your new career in law enforcement at cocosheriff.org today, and by Bay Alarm, sponsored by Bay Alarm, Worry less about your people and your property with Bay Alarm. BayAlarm.com. They got the 49ers defense 1 sack. I'm going to keep talking about this, as Tracy Sandler just said. She thinks a lot of that secondary play starts and ends with the defensive line. And I would tend to agree with her. However, the Niners in the secondary have made too many penalties, too many grabs, too many mistakes, I think, in the last few weeks. Dennis.
Did you say 1 sack? Was there a sack?
No, 1 sack against the 49ers.
Oh, against the 49ers.
They protected okay.
Right,
but in terms of the protection for the opposition, I say that kind of plays into getting off the field on third down, which is what Fred Warner's talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, and, he said it right there. I mean, and we talked about it. I mean, if you score as an offense, your opponent is scoring every time you go on the football field, there's a big problem. And it starts up front. I mean, that's going to be the bottom line. That's going to be the conversation. The callers have already talked about it. You just need more out of everybody. Randy Gregory, he's getting kind of into the defense and learning the defense, learning the scheme. He had a couple of pressures. Eric Armstead's got to play better. Hargrave's got to play better. Drake, everyone's got to play better. And Nick Bosa's got to play better. I mean, he's got to figure out how he can, I guess Wilkes has to figure out how you can get him freed up, move him around a little bit, get him some stunts. But that whole front line's got to play better. You got to be able to get off the field. It was in the fourth quarter when you need to get off the football field, it was still third and long, and they were converting on first down or on third down. So you got to figure it out, and it all starts up front in the trenches.
Yeah, look, they work together. Dennis knows it better than I do. So it gave Kirk Cousins extra time, and he used it. And there's no injury excuses, because what if Justin Jefferson was playing tonight? I mean, they'd absolutely shred him. And look,
gotta be. It would have been 42.
It would have been awesome. Yeah. So look, this is not something we're used. This is not something we're used to talking about. I mean, I just saw this. They had a 15.6% pass rush win rate, which is their worst since 2017, and we were doing those shows. They sucked in 2017. So, look, they had an off night. They couldn't get to the quarterback. The Vikings have a couple of good tackles, but that shouldn't matter. In 2019, this defensive line dominated everybody, and they brought in Hargrave and spent a bunch of money, and they just gave Bosa a big fat contract, and they brought in Randy Gregory with the thought that he was going to get there, and Armstead's making a bunch of money, and it shouldn't be about money, but money does equate that you've had success in the past. And that they've had to do that, and then therefore Steve Wilkes had to bring extra guys. The corners didn't hold up; they had to hold up too long. I mean, it's just it's a combination of things. And when it works out, we all sit there and say, "Wow, the defensive line and the DBs are really good." But it didn't work tonight. And the thing that makes you nervous about it is if that's their Achilles heel, that's not good, because Joe Burrow's starting to get healthy, and you got a bunch of quarterbacks behind that. They can absolutely take advantage of it. So they got to figure out a way, as you said, Dennis. Steve Wilkes has got to find a way to get to the quarterback, because early on it was the run game. They stopped that, and then all of a sudden Minnesota got to the pass game, and they just shredded them, man. 0 sacks, bad win rate. You can't play defense this way. You're going to get shredded in this league.
Not good. They lose 22-17. Let's go out to Mike. Mike is in Eugene. Mike, I like to put the little blurbs here for us. Just says, Mike, I've got 49ers heartburn. Mike, have you taken anything for it, man? Are you okay?
Yeah. Nurses are taking good care of me over at the Blind Center, Palo Alto.
Good deal. All right. Good deal, Mike.
So listen, guys. Yeah, I got heartburn, all right. Forget about the fumble. Forget about the missed field goal. Forget about the 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, not to mention on our last drive with 34 seconds. Forget about that. We know that shouldn't happen, but the defense, for crying out loud, Adam, you probably don't remember, I called you and Tom, and I complained about Steve Wilkes' hire in the beginning.
I recall. I do recall that complaint, yeah.
I did not like his record. I didn't like what he was bringing in. I was concerned, especially about the fact that he blitzes a lot and he goes to man way too much, in my opinion. And I'm not, Dennis, you're a Niner hero, man. I love you, but don't get me wrong. I'm a fan forever, and it just drives me nuts when I see this happening. If they give up that many yards, you got to change some things up. The D-line. I bought a Bosa jersey because the Niners invested. I was going to burn it, but it cost me $129, so I put it back in the closet.
Don't burn it, brother. Don't burn it. Not yet, all right?
No, I put it back. I put it back in the closet. I put it in the closet. It's still got a little coffee on it, but it's in the closet.
All right, and
the
defense is what's got you. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And Wilkes has to do. Here's what I'm wondering. I hope that he realizes not only is he studying film, but they're studying film of our defense too, and at what we're putting out there and what we're doing and not doing. And I agree with everybody who said it about our D-line, man. We're all healthy. I don't get it. And
Mike, I appreciate the call, man. We got to run, but dude, I'm with you, man. I hear you because it's my frustration too. I think you got to get home. If the calling card is getting home as a defensive line, then you've got to continue to do it. Dennis, is there anything you change? Is there anything you say, man, we're just not doing it? I mean, I don't know enough about Steve Wilkes and his rates and his schematics to analyze it from the perspective that the caller was, but from in your mind, just from a simple we're not executing standpoint as a D-line, what has to happen?
I mean, you got to throw a fit to the quarterback. I mean that's what your attitude's got to be. And you know, you can't rely on blitzes. You can't rely on games. You know, it's one-on-one. And we talk about it all the time. You know, someone's always going to be one-on-one. Someone's going to be ISO'd on that defensive line. You got to understand who that player is. You got to understand if it's you, Eric Armstead, if it's you, Randy Gregg, or if it's you, Nick Bosa. I mean, you got to win. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Your secondary is stressed right now. They're trying to figure it out. It feels like, you know, it just feels like, you know, when you're good, you're good. When you're bad, you're bad. And you can fix it, though. This is something that can be it's easily fixed. I mean, you just got to go and you got to execute. I mean, you're a defensive lineman. Your job is to defend the run and then get after the quarterback. And it's that. I mean, defensive line is not rocket science. I say it all the time. You just got to find the freaking ball.
I kind of thought
that's
I was thinking differently. I thought about it differently.
And it's not as hard. I mean, it's you get your reads and you just rush.
Yeah.
I mean, you penetrate, you rush. I mean, whoever it is. I mean, but someone's one-on-one. I mean, when you got a player like Nick Bosa, someone's going to be one-on-one. But now, Nick Bosa, you make the big money, bro. There's a lot of expectations now.
People spending $120 on your jerseys, man.
Oh, yeah.
You got to come through.
Yeah, and they want to burn them. I think that's ridiculous.
I hope
come on, it's his 26th birthday, man. You can't burn his jersey.
Can't burn it on his birthday.
Crazy?
But, yeah, I mean, expectations are expectations. And, we've praised this defensive line this whole football season. We've always talked about the goal rush and all this. Now it's time, now you got to do it. You got to do. You've been whooped up 2 games in a row now. And now it's about pride now. I mean, this week's about pride. And you got another quarterback that's watching this film. He's licking his chops. I mean, if you can't get after this kid, I mean, he'll chop you up again. So, it's about pride.
Plus, you know what happens, too, Dennis, and you can speak to this, is that the invincibility is gone. Remember when Mike Tyson lost and everyone went, oh, this guy's beatable.
Right.
The 49ers are all of a sudden beatable. You lose to the Browns. This is why I totally disagreed when people said last week, oh, this loss is good. No, it's not. Because now you have an air of invincibility, and people don't think they can beat you, and now everybody thinks they can.
Yeah, they've seen it.
The Browns beat you, the Vikings beat you. Those aren't special teams,
and they did it in different ways, which is a little bit concerning. I mean, they just beat the brakes off him here. I mean, they played really good. I give credit to Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's one of the best games I feel like I've seen him play. The interception he throws isn't really on him. It gets sort of ripped away there.
It was a great play.
It was a great play there.
By Ward. But
then he gashed as one of the best secondary and one of the best defenses in football, or maybe not.
But Gardner Minshew scored 38 points on the Browns yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, that defense is good, but it's not that good. It's not the 85 Bears.
Right.
And then you come in today, Minnesota was 2-4 this year. All one score games. And the only 2 teams they had beaten were the Bears and the Panthers. Come on. And you come in and you're in a 1-score game and you can't find a way to beat these guys. And I know that I take my health in my hands when I say that Brock Purdy, look, I don't care how many plays you make. He made a lot of great plays tonight. I don't care how many great plays you make. The great ones make the plays when they count. Joe made them when they counted. Steve made them when they counted. Mahomes makes them when they counted. He had 2 opportunities in the fourth quarter, and he threw interceptions. And on the first one, it was a first down that he didn't need to force. And on the second down, I realized there's 34 seconds left. But you're not throwing to Ray McLeod on a jump ball. That's not what you do. That's not what he does. If you want to throw that to Jennings, fine. If you want to throw that to
Jennings looked like he was
fine.
there, too. He looked like he was kind of on a crossing.
He was right behind him, and Ayuk was open down the right sideline. It's hard to see those things. I'm not asking for perfection, but we've put him on such a pedestal. And the expectations around here is, hey, he's an MVP. He's one of the best in the league. Okay, well, the best in the league make the plays when they count. It was a tough situation for Brock to be in. There's no question about it. But Kyle said it himself. On the interception with 5:36 left, he just missed the throw. And it wasn't like Cleveland last week. We gave him the benefit of the doubt. Oh, it was wet. That was a really good defense. Controlled environment. You're down by 5 points. Go win the game. Sometimes your team needs you to pick you up and win that game. If you're that good, he's still got growth to go. I'm not down on the guy. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the comparisons to Brady and the comparisons to Montana are flat out ridiculous. The kid's still got a lot to learn.
They've lost 2 games by a combined 7 points after starting 5-0 there. Brock throws that little lollipop off of the same foot. You know what I mean? You throw off that same arm. You ever see a baseball player do that? You airmail it. It goes right up into the air. You can't do that. You got to throw off that opposite foot. Todd, Steve, Nathan, I see all you guys who are hanging on the line. But you guys for a long time. I promise we'll get to you guys before we're done here. We got an injury report for you. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you till about 10:30 tonight, only here on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. 2 in a row. It's the NFL. Every team is good. It doesn't matter who you're going against, what the record is, or anything like that. We didn't come into the week taking this team lightly. We knew it was going to be a hostile environment. It was going to be a great challenge. Our defense was really good. Kirk Cousins is really good. So it's like, for us, we came in with the right mindset. We just got to execute better. But for me, and a second one in a row hurts, obviously, but we just got to be better, and got a big one ahead this week too. So.
49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, off of a loss, he takes another loss. This time 2 interceptions for Brock. First time he's done that. Niners had a chance to come back at the end there after a missed field goal by Greg Joseph. He could not lead them all the way downfield this time through an interception. And Niners fall to 5-2 now. Again, back-to-back losses by a combined 7 points. He was 10-0 in the regular season before these most recent 2 losses. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, and John Lund hanging out with you here. 22-17 the final. The Vikings beat the Niners. Let's get you the injury report, sponsored by Hughes Orthopedics, specializing in regenerative medicine therapies to heal chronic pain without surgery. Call 650-343-KNEE. The first one, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. He left the game with an ankle injury. He's the one who did not return. The only other thing reported after the game, there was Fred Warner, who at one point left the game with a thigh contusion, I guess, and then came back in. Did we get any word on what happened with Dre Greenlaw, who left the game and then did he re-enter after that? He came right back in, right after a couple of plays. I don't know exactly what it was, if he got wind knocked out of him or cramps or something, but Fred, you could kind of see it. He got banged in the thigh. I think it was by Hawkinson trying to bring him down. So Fred was okay, but I guess they'll just nurse that. And Flanagan-Fowles, we should get an update later this week. Let's go back out to the phone lines here. Let's go to Steve. Steve's been waiting for a long time. Steve's in San Francisco. You're on the Sports Leader, Steve. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going, fellas? A rough one. I don't want to retread a lot of ground that's obvious and what we know. Wilkes and that entire defensive performance, it's been bandied about.
Yep.
Honestly, and Kyle Shanahan, I come back to him because he's the head coach. It's an interesting statistic. The Niners are 0-36 when they're trailing by just 8 points or more in the fourth quarter. No other NFL team since 2017 has been winless in that regard. Obviously, this was a defensive gaffe, but I can't dismiss the fact of his gross lack of player management in terms of health. DMC, he's hurt, but he's playing. He runs him into the ground. Jordan Mason is a more than capable back. That guy seems really talented. He refuses to give him a look. The in-game management, all of those things. So it's not like the defense didn't fail tonight, but how are we going to overlook Kyle Shanahan as the constant with a lot of these problems? Why aren't you going to go to Jordan, even with CMC fully healthy? This guy is another weapon. Is his game that rigid that he just can't accommodate to be able to make room for some more weapons or give this guy a breather? I mean, and post game, he skirts responsibility. You're the head coach. I know that Wilkes runs the defense, but he speaks like an offensive coordinator. And he's like, well, they only punted one time and we only punted one time, and we're going to have to look at this. And the demeanor on the sidelines when this team is down is that frustration and that just that unraveling is palpable. And I don't think that he's without blame when it comes to a lot of this stuff in terms of how he manages in game, and we see the same things over and over.
Appreciate the call, Steve. Thanks so much, man. I think some of what he has to say is true. I also think a lot of that is a gripe that you can't quantify, or that we as fans and people on the side can't know what he's talking about. I mean, getting into stuff on sideline by how people's faces look after certain situations. You show me any NFL team that's supposed to be happy after they go down in a game. By the way, this is a team that hadn't trailed by 12 points in any game this year until today. So I don't know that we can sit back and gripe at Kyle Shanahan's management of players when 2 weeks ago we were talking about Brock Purdy as an MVP candidate because of his lack of turnovers, that there was no health problems on this team until 2 weeks ago. And what are the major health problems that have been mismanaged to this point? I completely disagree on the notion that Christian McCaffrey was being misused today, and I completely disagree with the notion that Jordan Mason is the guy that should have been in there. If Jordan Mason were Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason would be playing for this team instead of Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason is a byproduct of who's left there. Elijah Mitchell was banged up and was the number 2, and he has been ineffective in the few times he's carried the ball. If McCaffrey can't go, Mason will be a fine backup. But if McCaffrey's there, it is outrageous to suggest he should not be the one on the field for every snap, because he wants to be on the field for every snap.
Yeah, and he's the fuel of this run game, right? I mean, and this offense is kind of it's kind of generated, or it's kind of ran behind the run game, and it's important to have a run game. And he's your best back. But backs do get beat up in the system. And
I will agree with that. There's no doubting that.
And it's the running style. I mean, it's that one cut and run. It's not dancing. I mean, you're dropping your head and you're hitting the line of scrimmage in between the tackles and also on the perimeter. Backs have been getting beat up since Kyle Shanahan has been here.
How's Raheem Mostert held up?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, how's Raheem doing now in Miami? Is he staying healthy?
Yeah, he's only
is
on
he
pace,
staying healthy?
He's only on pace for 27 touchdowns.
There you go.
Yeah, he's doing all right. In terms of the one thing I can address,
just saying, that's all that's going on.
Some of the stuff I can't address, but I can address the way postgame works. You're never going to hear a coach call anybody out.
No.
I mean, he said something about Steve Wilks. I guarantee on the plane they're going to have a conversation, and he probably wasn't very happy with what was called there. But as Dennis said, players play, coaches coach. You got to make plays. And probably Steve Wilks is going to back his guy. But I can guarantee you, Kyle's not a nice guy when they lose. And so he's going to hold guys accountable and everything. He's just not going to do it publicly. That's just not his style. And that's why players like him. He is very much a player's coach. But I can tell you this, and we all know this, being around the 49ers as much as we are, but we hear from the people who are there every day. He can be an ass. He is really tough. He's going to coach tough. He's going to coach a quarterback tough. He doesn't rip Brock Purdy. He said after the game that Brock Purdy played really well. I would say that those 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter are not great.
No,
but you know what? He said he flat out missed Juwan Jennings. But he's going to sit down with Brock. They'll go through every single throw. And he's going to be tough on grading the film for Brock Purdy. That's who Kyle is. But it doesn't do him any good, or any coach, to start calling guys out and things like that. Look, I know people don't like to hear this after a game like this. They're 5-2. They're fine. They got to get it going, and they got to play much better defense. But Kyle Shanahan will hold his team accountable. I guarantee you that.
And to the caller, Steve in San Francisco, he waited for a long time. I disagree with most of that, but, dude, good sports radio call. Appreciate it. Call anytime, man. Thanks so much for listening and waiting on the line for as long as you did. Let's go out to Nathan. Nathan is in San Jose. Nathan's sort of from the other side of things, not really concerned. What's going on, Nathan? You're on KNBR. And Nathan's not on KNBR. All right, let's go back to Todd. Todd is in San Bruno. Todd, we were just talking about this. He wants to talk Brock Purdy's play. Kyle said he played well. I would take a little bit of exception with the fourth quarter. What's up, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, I think John got to this a little bit in the last segment, but, I was a bit concerned about Brock Purdy's play, obviously, in the fourth quarter. I want you guys to convince me that I'm overreacting here, because the way I see it, this was a big step back for the Brock believers. I feel like what this team's been missing the last few years is a quarterback with a really killer instinct that could put them over the edge. And Purdy had the chance to prove that twice in the fourth quarter, and he totally blew it. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to overreact here. I still believe in the kid, but, walk me off the Purdy ledge here. Help me out.
Appreciate the call, Todd. What do you think, Dennis? I'm a Purdy believer. And this game, honestly, didn't turn me. It's funny because I said after last game, I was like, yeah, it didn't deter me at all. Didn't change anything for me. This game, I thought he played pretty well until the fourth quarter. I really did. Until the first interception, and even the first one, I kind of thought, did he make a mistake? They were talking about him throwing to a spot, but then you see it from behind. You're like, all right, that was not a good throw. But I'm not gonna write him off completely because of those two throws. He's still a young quarterback. I'd still like to see more, but I don't think these two games make me think I'm totally done with Brock Purdy, because the killer instinct thing. One, I think there's times we have seen killer instinct from Brock, right. And the other part of it is the first part of this year, there was no need for any of that. They were blowing the doors off teams.
Yeah, and I think that's the key right there. I mean, this is a time, these last couple games have been the time where you want to see that killer instinct. And tonight you have 2 drives where you can go down and take the team down and you can win the football game. He did it last week. He put the team in position to win a football game. But you do kind of want to see that killer instinct. I mean, you want to see him on the sidelines kind of getting after people saying, listen, we're about to win this football game. I haven't given up on Brock Purdy. I think he's played too well. I think he deserves the right, for people still to kind of believe in him. He's played against a couple defenses that scheme-wise kind of got after him a little bit. And then he's still, he's a young kid. He's still got a lot of room to grow. I mean, his ceiling was so high. I mean, the guy didn't lose a game for 12 games he didn't lose. So, the expectation was super high for him. Now he's lost a couple games. Now I'm really going to see the type of player, type of character he kind of has to come back from something like this. Now he has to come home, playing against the home crowd, yes, but he's playing against another very good defense, a defense that's going to look at these films for the last couple of weeks, and they're going to get after him. So, I haven't given up on Brock Purdy. I think he's a good quarterback. But he is young. I mean, he really is. This is his second year in the NFL. He came out like a rocket. now he's got some adversity. Let's see what he does with it. I still believe in a Brock Purdy.
Let me just give you the numbers. First three quarters, 16-19, 214 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. Fourth quarter, 5 of 11, 58 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So if we're being honest about Brock and we're not putting on our 49ers glasses, he played poorly in the fourth quarter. I mean, there's just no two ways around it. 16-19, 214 and a touchdown for the first three quarters, 5 of 11, 58 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. In the fourth quarter, it's not acceptable. And it doesn't change my opinion of Brock Purdy at all. I think Brock Purdy is going to be a great quarterback. All I'm simply saying is that when we bring up the names of Brady and Montana and these kind of things, which people have both locally and nationally over the last little while, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see what the kid can do, because he's good and he's going to be good, and it's a great story, and he's much ahead of the curve in terms of where a kid like that should be. But he's going to make mistakes, and teams are going to make adjustments. And Dennis, as you know, then it's up to you to adjust back. But one of the things that a quarterback is judged on, and people laugh at, is wins and losses. And Mahomes and Montana and go back in Manning and Elway and all these great quarterbacks, they seem to get wins in the fourth quarter. They come back wins in the fourth quarter. And the last couple of weeks, Jake Moody missed a field goal last week, so that's not on him. But he had 2 opportunities in the fourth quarter and 3 interceptions on both drives. So he's got to live with that.
There you go. Tough deals. Hey, we did get Nathan back in San Jose. Let's get to Nathan real quick before we get to the Kyle Shanahan presser here. Nathan is in San Jose. Nathan, you've been waiting a while. You're on the Sports Leader.
Cope.
What's up?
How you doing, family?
What's up, bro? How are you, Nathan?
I'm in San Jose.
All right, Nathan.
Just like your brother or something?
I have no idea. I have no idea who this is.
Does he know he's on the air?
Nathan, do you know you're on the air?
I'm watching you guys live stream right now.
Oh, nice,
cool.
dude.
Right,
appreciate it, Nathan. What do you got, dude? You're not that worried about the Niners?
No, Doug. I'm not worried at all.
Yeah, you don't sound like you're not worried at all, bro. I can't wait to not be that worried in about an hour, bro.
Bro, it was bound to happen, but it's okay. We'll be okay.
All right, Nathan. Appreciate the call, bro. I'm not worried, man. Yeah, me neither, brother. All right, dude. I dig it, too. I dig Nathan's vibe, dude. Call anytime, Nathan. He's like, what's up, man? I'm in San Jose. I know. I just said that. You're on the Sports Leader. Niners lose 22-17 to the Minnesota Vikings. That's the final here. They go. They're now 5-2. One more before the bye. They don't have Deebo Samuel here. No Trent Williams. And no sacks for the Niner defense. Not a great win as they get carved up by Kirk Cousins. Probably the best offensive showing, or at least the best passing showing for him this year. He's put up some gaudy numbers, but this was against a pretty tough defense, and the Niners did not hold up. Back-to-back losses for the first time this year. We'll hear from Kyle Shanahan. What did he have to say post-game? That's coming up next. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, and John Lund, only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here. Following a 49er 22-17 loss to the Minnesota Vikings, we'll get back out to your calls in just a few minutes. But following back-to-back losses here, Kyle Shanahan went to the podium, spoke to the media. We'll give you the post-game interview sponsored by the Handlery Union Square Hotel, San Francisco's oldest family-owned hotel. We'll go out to the podium. Apologies for the very beginning of the interview, a little bit crackly on the mic there, and then it straightens out. But we'll go to the podium in Minnesota. Here's Kyle Shanahan.
What's going to stick with you about this game?
The loss, losing. I mean,
Are there specific areas that you're just really concerned with?
I was real disappointed that we couldn't get them off the field. I mean, they had one punt today. We had one punt. They had one turnover. We had 3 turnovers. So I think when both teams only punt once, it looks like it's going to be a shootout. But, we ended up turning over 2 more times than them, and it was a 5-point game. So almost as simple as that.
Right, you weren't able to sack them. There were also some assignments team blown and some blitz calls that backfired. What went on those first half?
I don't think assignment was blown on the touchdown. Called an all-out blitz, and he's got to get rid of it right away, and he threw it up and got a chance for a pick, didn't come through with it, and they got a touchdown. It's a real bad play by us.
Are you okay with that blitz call in that moment?
That's stuff we'll discuss throughout this week. Obviously, I did not like the result.
Brock's 2 interceptions seemed similar in that he was expecting a receiver to come across. I mean, what was going on both of those?
I thought on the first one to Juwan, he just missed the throw. I thought he just sailed it a little bit inside, had Juwan right there. The second one, then they're soft as can be, going down without any timeouts, and he tried to lob it over a guy who was really deep, and it looked like the guy climbed the ladder and made a hell of a play.
Do you feel like you're getting enough from your pass rush right now?
No, I don't look like it. Last week I didn't think they had as many opportunities. This week it seemed like they did, watching it live. I'll have to check it out on the plane, but we didn't have any sacks today, and when you go against a quarterback like that, you got to make him uncomfortable, and he didn't seem too uncomfortable.
How did Chris McCaffrey come out?
It seemed like he was fine. I haven't talked to him yet, but never heard anything during the game. Not much you can do about it. I mean, we flat out got beat, and I think right now you got to take it like a man, and we got a game here, and I think tomorrow we wake up, it'll be 5 days from now. We got a team coming off a bye week who's been waiting for this for a little bit, and we can't sit here and worry about what's happened before this. We got to make sure that we do everything from now all the way till Sunday when that game's over to find a way to beat the Bengals, and then we go into our bye week, and I just looked at our guys right now as we got about 5.5 days left. Got to focus all on that and make sure we go in that bye week 6-2, not 5-3.
Was there the 2 interceptions? Was there a theme on those? Were they with the reads or just the throws? What can you tell?
No, that's what I was just saying. He just missed the one to Juwan, a little over the middle. Had to have it a little more inside the numbers. And the second one was just trying to lob it over someone in desperation.
How do you think he played?
I thought he played really well. As the one missed throw to Juwan was the one tough play that he didn't make.
I think you going at targeted once in the second half. Did they do something to take him away in the first half?
No, I mean, there was plays for him. Just they mixed up their coverages, and just the way it rolls sometimes.
You had Jalen Moore in there for Trent. How do you think Jalen played today?
It seemed like he did well. I didn't notice. I didn't say his name much today, so it seemed like he did well. I thought, it's frustrating to only get 17 points, but the guys, when it's a game like that, we got to score on all those. And when you turn it over 3 times, that's 3 drives without points, and then we had that missed field goal too. So can't do that when the game goes the way it did.
Where is your confidence level in Jake Moody? He obviously made that kick, but missed 3 in a row.
Yeah, it was tough when he missed that. It was nice that he came back and hit a real long one. I think that was 54, 55, not sure, but that definitely helped the confidence, the one he finished with.
right, there you go. There's Kyle Shanahan hitting on a number of different issues. The defense, Jake Moody. He said that he thought that Brock played really well. 16-19, 214 yards and a touchdown in the first three quarters. 5-11, 58 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. So I'd imagine when he goes back and looks, he may change his mind at least on the fourth quarter. But Dennis, at this point now, as he was kind of saying, all of a sudden you're playing on a late game. Bengals are coming off a bye. What do you got to do here mentally? Just boom, you got to flush this one quick and you're ready to get going because you've lost 2 straight, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good, flush it, but you can't. I mean, especially on the defensive side. I mean, you got to look at the film and you got to figure out, what's going on, especially in that defensive line room. And we've talked about it all night. I mean, you got to figure out what's going on. How come you're not getting home? Why are you not getting pressure? Why are you not getting hits? Why are you not, disturbing quarterbacks? I mean, you got to figure it out. I mean, it sounds good. You got, 5 days to get ready for Cincinnati, but you can't go into Cincinnati with the same attitude or same game plan you've had the last 2 weeks, especially on the defensive side. So you got to figure it out. You can't just forget about it. You got to get back in tomorrow. I don't know if they get a day off or how it works, but you got to figure it out. You got to get in there and get some screaming and hollering going, get some leaders on this team and saying that we got to play a whole lot better, this next coming up week, because it's going to be a short week, and you got to fix it. And, we talked about it earlier. When you're 5-0, you're talking about Super Bowls. Now you've lost 2 back-to-back, and you're going to see everybody's going to kind of turn on you a little bit. So it's going to have to come within that locker room and the leadership. But you got to figure it out. You can't forget about these last 2 weeks, especially tonight. I mean, tonight, the defense, you really got drug. You got drug up and down the football field. So you got to figure it out. You can't forget about it.
452 yards allowed by this 49er defense, the most they've allowed all season. 22-17 is the final back-to-back losses. And, as you mentioned, they play the Cincinnati Bengals next week. Last team they played coming off of a bye was the Cleveland Browns. This time you get a team at home, but Bengals have had 2 weeks to prepare for this one. They've started playing better. They've started getting a little bit more healthy as well. More of your calls and your reaction. 49ers lose 22-17. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lund from the KNBR studios in downtown San Francisco on the Sports Leader.
Offset out of the right. Juszczyk 2-point stance ahead of McCaffrey. Purdy will drop 7 steps from under center. Throws over the middle. Intercepted. He went to Jawan Jennings and he completely missed. And threw the ball right to Cam Bynum, the Cal safety. Did he catch the ball? Did he trap the ball? Where was Purdy throwing the ball?
That's what it sounded like as the 49ers fall to the Minnesota Vikings 22-17, the final there. Brock Purdy, 2 interceptions in the game, 272 yards, 21-30. What were the fourth quarter numbers? You had them there, John?
Brock Purdy, the first 3 quarters, 16-19, 214, a touchdown, no interceptions. Fourth quarter, very Jimmy-like, 5 of 11, 58 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Hey-oh. I'll let you finish the number before I give you the hey-oh. No, that's
good.
not good. I can't. You know what's funny, dude? Not a joke. As we're sitting on the couch, dude, when he threw the first interception, I said to Tim, I said, "Oh, Jimmy."
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Man, I kind of made the joke, and I was like, "Oh, it's like funny because it hurts." You know what I mean? It's like it's sort of masochist funny. Let's go out to the phone lines here. Jerry's in Roseville. Jerry's been waiting a while. Jerry wants to talk about the defensive performance. What's up, Jerry? You're on the Sports Leader.
It's Terry.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Terry. You're on the Sports Leader. What's up, Terry?
Let's go.
That's
Number
on
one,
Tim,
I called in HP at the beginning of the season. I picked the 49ers to run the table, and they're not doing me so good. But the defense is, they only gave up 22 points. That's not horrible. Mm-hmm. They only had 1 punt, so it could be a lot worse.
I think they only had 1 punt because they were so effective on third down more than anything. And by the way, if Terry wants me to call him Jerry, he can't call FP HP. He said I called HP. I was like, dude, right off the rip, man. Right after I corrected the name.
I know, that's pretty funny. Do you think he was calling Hewlett Packard?
Yeah, dude. I was like, he called HP for what?
Oh, okay.
I hope they were able to fix it. Sorry, Terry. I'm not trying to make fun of you, dude.
That's not cool.
No, but I honestly, I think that relax. I think the only reason the punt numbers were so low is because they were so effective on third down. They never got to a position where they needed a punt. I mean, here's how their drives go. They throw an interception on the first drive after 3 plays, right? Then they go touchdown, field goal, field goal before they punt on their 7th drive. Right. And even on their 8th drive, they go 10 plays, 38 yards, and they miss a field goal.
Well, that's the
so
only
they had an
reason
opportunity to score on every drive except for the first and the 7th.
And long drives.
Long drives.
Right.
I mean, 89 yards?
75, 77, 50.
Those are long drives.
Even the missed field goal was a 38-yard drive. So a bunch of long over 50. That's a tough one. Tough deal.
Yeah, look, every single guy on that defense, and Dennis knows it, is flying home right now going, we got to be better. I mean, that's a high-priced defensive line. Hargrave got paid. Bosa got paid. Armstead got paid. Gregory's gotten paid in the past by teams. They got to be better. I don't care how good Minnesota is. We were conjuring up images of 2019. That team never did this. Got no sacks, very little pressure. They just didn't get it done. And then penalties on the backside because they couldn't get the pressure on the quarterback early in the game. Minnesota, who averages 75 yards, are one of the worst rushing teams in the league, 30th in rushing. They were having their way run the football just like Cleveland was the week before. Cleveland ran for $160. This is not the offense, this is not the defense that these guys signed up for.
They got both ways. That's D-line stuff.
And he brings up a the point. I mean, 22-19, you should still win those football games, but it's the way that they did it. If you're not getting pressure, which hurts your defensive backs, the play that Ward did not make at the end. Look, the NFL is a one-score game. Minnesota, in every single one of their games this year, they're now 3-4. They've played 7 one-score games. About 70% of games are one-score games, and about 30% of games are field goal games. It's about making 1 or 2 plays that the other team didn't make. Jordan Addison made a play right before the end of the half that was a big play, and then consistently, as you said, 8 of 13 on third down. It's a 2 to 3 play league most weeks where those teams who win make the plays and the teams that don't make the plays lose. That's as simple. I mean, if Jake Moody makes a field goal, this is the first loss of the year. That's one play. If Ward steals that ball from Addison instead of vice versa, 49ers probably win that game. I mean, really, it comes down to 2 plays over 2 weeks, and they could be undefeated. But that's not what happened. They didn't make the plays.
Yeah, and you said it. It comes down to making the plays. And we talk about the sacks. Yeah, not having a sack is a big thing, especially in this defense, but not pressuring the quarterback, not getting the quarterback off his mark.
He was clean, man. If there was mud or dirt, he would have been clean.
Yeah, and that's I mean, the sacks, we get hung up on sacks, but to just
Gotta
the
knock him
pressure,
down, make
the
him feel
pressure,
uncomfortable.
a little bit, and get him off his mark a little bit. I think it would have changed the football game.
I always think, by the way, whenever you say high-priced free agents or high-priced talent, we're talking about guys who were ineffective. Just makes you think of that line from Major League. He goes, "I thought you said we had some high-priced talent." He said, "That's because they're only high-priced."
Exactly. Totally true,
That's
man.
a great line. Peter wants to talk a little Brock Purdy. Peter, you're on the Sports Leader.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Copes, how we doing, baby?
Oh, we are loving the intro, Peter. What's going on, dude? How are you?
Like it. I like
What's
the sound
going on? I
effects.
want to talk about the hard facts here. We're giving Brock Purdy a lot of grief here for one bad game. Yeah, sure. And let's stop comparing him to Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, all these greats. He's basically one season into his career. I'd take this guy 10 out of 10 times again. What we need to be talking about here is our defense. Not one sack tonight. And why hasn't San Francisco won in Minnesota since 1992?
Damn.
Right? If we show up to Cincinnati like this next week, we're just going to be a bag of wet pals. Right?
Yep.
Talk to me about that.
Dude, Peter, way to end it with an exclamation point, dude. I like bag of wet towels. We'll talk a bit about that, dude. Dennis, why haven't they won in Minnesota since 1992? That means you were there, yeah?
92, yeah.
You were on the team, huh?
Yeah, 92. Steve I think Steve
would
might
have
have
been at the
started
helm,
that.
yeah.
Steve might have started that game, yeah. So, it's a road game. I mean, the crowd
Tough place
loud.
to
I don't
play,
know,
yeah.
tough place to play. And you don't execute. I mean, that's what football's about, right? You know, John just said it. It's about one play, two play here or there. It's about execution. I didn't know that stat that the 49ers haven't won in Minnesota since 90 or since
You guys beat them
82, 92.
92, 38-19. You guys moved to 3-2 at that point.
So we weren't starting off fast. 92.
And it was like it was weird. 38 points was sort of a grimy game, dude. Only 254 total yards for the offense.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a tough place to play. And if you don't take advantage of, any football game, especially on the road, if you don't take advantages of plays, and it's hard to win football games. And if you lose a turnover game, you're going to lose football.
Yeah, 3 of them today. Go ahead, John.
No, you hit the turnovers, and we haven't really talked about it. That CMC was a killer, man.
That was a brutal one.
Killer. And,
it was a brutal one.
You get a play by Ward, you get all excited, you get down to the 11-yard line, and then he drops it. He put on gloves a little bit later, but again, it's these situations where Fred Warner had one, and he got it down to the 26. They got it was Cleveland's first drive. Same kind of a thing. Fred Warner, after he scored a touchdown, Fred Warner gets an interception against Cleveland. Jake Mooney misses a field goal. You don't cash it in. See, Ward makes a great play. You get an interception on the third play of the game. You don't cash it in. And not only that, they went 89 yards the other way and scored their first touchdown off that turnover. So you get 3, you get 7, you get nothing, and then they turn around and make it a touchdown. So that's a swing of 10 to 14 points right there.
A lot of stuff we didn't talk about or have a chance to get into that we will pull apart this week. First opening drive without a touchdown or a point scored for the 49ers is their biggest deficit of the season at 12 points. Christian McCaffrey did get into the end zone for a 16th consecutive time to set an NFL record today, and it just sort of is a moot point as the 49ers fall 22-17. By the way, 5 targets, 57 yards for Ayuk in the first half, 1 target, no catches for Ayuk in the second. So, like you needed more offense, you needed things to get moving, and he wasn't really a part of the offense in the second half. We will start to put a bow on this thing. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, who was a member of the 49ers the last time they beat the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. On that day, it was October 3rd, 1992, 38-19. Today, they lose 22-17 on the Sports Leader.
49ers lose at 22-17 to Minnesota. That's 2 losses in a row after the undefeated starters who drive the game. Brought to us by our good friends at Modesto Toyota. Kevin and the entire crew will take care of you. Modesto Toyota. It's worth the drive for selection and savings. Of course, that's where I get my Toyotas as well. You can check them out online, modestotoyota.com. My friends at Modesto Toyota. Christian McCaffrey breaks the record.
We've got Kittle and Ayuk tight left and Jawan Jennings right. Handoff, McCaffrey. McCaffrey dives into the end zone. Touchdown! CMC!
Yeah, ends up getting a really good double team block by Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks. They absolutely caved down the entire left side of the defense. Kittle gets a good kick out block, and CMC finds the crack on the cutback.
There you go. Christian McCaffrey scores again. The streak continues. And later on, just for good measure, caught a swing pass for about 35 yards and scored another touchdown. So 2 for Christian McCaffrey, but not enough. The 49ers lose in Minnesota, 22-17. We'll get some final thoughts for you next, only here on the Sports Theater.
as they go pony again. Quick throw out right to McCaffrey, blocked from Jennings. Christian breaks a tackle. He's gone. Touchdown! San Francisco!
Detonate on the rocket screen and just launches right in between the blocks of Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, man, was Papa going a little Genuine Pony on there? We'll make that the call of the game. Sponsored by Call 811. Whether your project is big or small, always call 811 before you dig. Christian McCaffrey into the end zone twice today, receiving and a rushing touchdown.
As they go pony again.
Thank you. He also sets the NFL record there for consecutive touchdowns scored from scrimmage. 16 consecutive games with a touchdown. Pretty impressive, but the 49ers fall to the Minnesota Vikings 22-17. Dennis, final thoughts on this one. There's going to be a lot to talk about throughout this week, and you go, oh, good, a short week. They are coming home. Not a short flight, and you're facing a team that's coming off of a bye with a pretty damn good offense.
Well, yeah, another long flight home. You got another L back to back. You got a short week. You got a lot to learn. Everyone's going to be talking about you now. I mean, for the last 5 weeks or 6 weeks, you've been going to the Super Bowl. You've been the greatest ever in every category. Now, you're going to see people kind of turn on you. Now you got to come together as a team, as a locker room, as leaders in the locker room, and you got to fix it. And you got to come out and play on Sunday. You have no choice. Let's think about the NFL. I mean, you got to come out and play on Sunday. You got to play a Cincinnati team that's putting it together and has a good quarterback. And you got to figure out how to get to them and get them uneasy.
They're used to this, although they got off to a slow start last year, but they lost in weeks 6 and 7. They lost at Atlanta, then they lost home and got embarrassed. Kansas City scored 44 on them when Christian McCaffrey just got acquired, and then they didn't lose until the NFC Championship game. So they've got to develop that kind of mentality again. They've got to start playing better. But I don't remember last year where they had something like this happen where they didn't have any sacks. But I remember they gave up 44 against Kansas City, and we weren't real high on them. And then all of a sudden, they got things working. They got Christian McCaffrey, and they integrated into the offense. So maybe they need to trade, jumpstart the team, whatever the case may be. But they've done this before. They can do it again. But they've got some things to fix.
And they've got 5 days to do it, right? They turn right back around. They've got to, 6 days, I guess, till they play, but 5 until it is game day. And that will be next Sunday. We'll be with you again next Sunday, 9 a.m. from Levi Stadium, getting you ready for the Niners and the Cincinnati Bengals. That'll be the final one before the bye week. And then things really start to heat up. Some really tough opponents. You got a Christmas Day game. You got a Thanksgiving Day game. You got to go out to Philadelphia December the 3rd. They're 5-1. Got to be holding on to a division now and trying to chase down a number 1 seed. Always good storylines throughout the NFL season. For Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund, I'm Adam Copeland. We'll be back with you tomorrow. The Waterboy gets going on the leadout spot at 5 a.m. and plenty to talk about all week long right here on KNBR. Till next week, Niners lose to the Minnesota Vikings 22-17. Only here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
As they go pony again.
Cousins has just thrown a 20-yard touchdown pass to his rookie wide receiver.
One of 2 TDs for Jordan Addison, who had 7 catches for 124 yards. The Vikings down the 49ers 22-17. Kevin Harlan, the call, Westwood won. Kirk Cousins threw